Hey there, folks. Welcome to another edition of Stranger in a Southern Land. I, of course, am your host, Jake Manning. Today in the program, we have Dr. Frank Gaskill from Southeast Psych. Of course, you may recognize him from the Freight Train documentary that I produced about a year ago. And you may also recognize him from the Legends of the Night documentary, which is available on Netflix. But anyways, I feel very lucky to have Dr. Frank and sit down and talk to him again. I talked to him for that documentary, but I feel very lucky to have him on the podcast today because he's doing something very special. And that's making psychology cool. He talks a lot about how movies and comic books can help kids cope through the problems of growing up and being special and unique. And I think that's pretty awesome. We have a wonderful conversation about movies and most specifically Star Wars and comic books, most specifically X-Men, because that's one of my favorites. So it's just a wonderful conversation. It was wonderful to sit down and talk with Dr. Frank. So I'm really excited to have you guys listen to this podcast. But before we jump into the events and the things I got coming up this weekend, I kind of want to take a little personal moment to talk about something personal. When this podcast drops and is public to everybody, it'll be the day after my 10-year anniversary of being here in Charlotte. I moved here from basically Iowa with everything that I own in a pickup truck. And because of my pro wrestling career of being traveling up and down the East Coast, I haven't had a lot of time, to spend here in the Southeast to really meet wonderful and cool people like Dr. Frank, Jeff Clayton, Jeff Reed, and even Caleb. Up until now, I've just now kind of known Caleb a little more closely the last couple of years. And of course, some of the other people that I've had on the podcast as well. And, I just haven't had time to sit down and have a good personal conversation with some of these people. And I've kind of felt like a stranger in a southern land, I haven't got a lot of opportunities to sit down and talk to new people. So that's kind of really what this project has done, is force my hand to kind of be sociable and meet the people that are around me and meet my neighbors. And I've got some pretty cool neighbors. So I'm hoping to feature them more and more on this podcast. And hopefully you guys keep listening. So that's kind of all I can do, is hopefully if you keep listening, I'll keep doing a good job. So that's all I can ask from you, and that's kind of what I wanted to say. I mean, it's kind of got a lot of emotions going through my head because I had a lot of hopes and expectations and stuff like that, but those have kind of changed. I've got new goals, I've got new hopes, I got new aspirations, and I'm excited to do them here in the Southeast, and I'm excited to do them for you folks who are listening and watching at home. But anyways, I'm very excited to let you know where I'm going to be at this weekend. I will be in Wilmington, North Carolina this Saturday for Masters of the Ring, or Masters of Ring Entertainment. It's a convention. Me and Sojo will be there promoting the Queens of Combat shows that are upcoming in June. But we'll be there at the High Spots table, so make sure you stop by and say hello. We'll be there passing out flyers and selling some merchandise. So make sure you say hi. And I may have a Stranger in a Southern Land ticket. Stranger in a Southern Land sticker, that is, to hand out to you. We'll be selling Queens of Combat tickets also, of course, as well. But anyways, if you want to say hi to me on social media, make sure you say hi to me on Twitter at ManScoutManning. And of course, I have Instagram at ManScoutManning. And if you have any questions about the podcast, make sure you email me at jake@sslshow.com. Or if you want to book me for an upcoming wrestling event, make sure you email me at manscoutmanning@yahoo.com. But anyways, without further ado, let's jump into this wonderful conversation with Dr. Frank Gaskill here on Stranger in a Southern Land. But anyways, I do a big flowery intro and stuff like that, so we're just going to jump right into the conversation.
Okay. So. What are we talking about?
Whatever you want to talk about, but I got a couple of things.
Okay.
I got a couple of things.
Great.
That's for sure. But anyways, Dr. Frank, thank you so much for having me over here at Southeast Psych, which is obviously doing pretty well because it has 2 locations.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I stumbled upon your other location this morning, even though I've been at this location before, so I'm rather embarrassed by that.
No. It happens to a lot of people.
Okay, so thank you very much for being very gracious with your time, which is very valuable, as probably some people may.
This is fun.
Good. Well, it's definitely for fun. Most people that probably I'm hoping that most people have seen the Freight Train documentary.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Anything that I do, I'm hoping that if they saw that, hopefully they're seeing this. Mm-hmm. And you were just a wonderful person to get in contact for that piece and that documentary and stuff like that. And you just really, you were very gracious with your time, and you said so many wonderful things in a little bit of time that we had to film that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of really wanted, when I started this project, I really wanted to sit down with you again and have a really in-depth conversation about Asperger's and everything that you do. But
Fantastic.
Just start off at the top here. Like I said, you had such a small fragment of what Asperger's is, but like I'd like a more in-depth conversation of what it is and what it entails. So for everybody that's listening, could you please just explain to them what Asperger's is?
Well, Asperger's is an identity. It's not a disorder or a syndrome as far as I'm concerned. And it's more of, I call it a more highly advanced brain, more highly evolved. Mm-hmm. And if you have Facebook, if you are on an Xbox, if you work with Microsoft, if you have an Apple computer, you would not have any of that stuff if it weren't for the Aspie brain. And it's basically the ability to hyper-focus and have special interests, and sort of the rest of the world falls away. But to have that ability, it comes at sometimes a bit of a cost, which is not understanding social situations, not socializing the same way other people do. And in middle school, you end up getting bullied or left out or ignored. But if you can find your place in the world and be supported, we'd be lost without that brain.
And there are varying degrees. Like
yes.
I even what you've described there, and a lot of stuff that I've read and I've heard you talk about, there's almost varying degrees. Like, and I think everybody, the way you describe it, everybody can kind of relate to it. That everybody gets very focused on something, but Aspies are very focused on certain things. So.
Yeah, you do not want to compete with an Aspie if you're going up against their special interests. There's no way you'll win. It's the way I describe it. It's the lemon continuum. You have a glass of water with lemon on the side, lemon flavored water, lemonade, lemon, and a lemon farm. And it's less and more, not good or bad. And you could think about anchoring it with Dan Aykroyd from Ghostbusters is probably lemon flavored water, where Sir Isaac Newton and Temple Grandin are lemon farms.
Mm-hmm. And I think what we talked about before is you get hyper-focused, and it seems like sometimes there's patterns that they really get into and stuff like that. What are some common things that the Aspies are interested in?
Astronomy, weather, Pokemon, Legos, Star Wars. Some of the careers that you would hope to find the top of their game would be some physicists, engineers, radiologists, dermatologists. It's finding and seeing connections in the world that maybe nobody's noticed before.
Okay. And I'm trying to think, was one other things. Sure. Like when you talk about the social interactions and stuff like that are very limited. Like there are certain people that we, especially in what I do in professional wrestling, see people like they seem a little bit off. So and especially since talking with you, it makes me think that some people that are involved in pro wrestling may have some of those qualities of being an Aspie and stuff like that.
Pro wrestling's a very common interest because you can categorize moves, they're named. You have drama. You don't have to guess what a wrestler is feeling when they're in the ring. And you can see that, and then it makes it easier to interpret for a guy or a girl on the spectrum. It's just hard for them to read those social situations, but if it's exaggerated, it makes it easier and they're drawn to it. Anime, Japanese manga, that's another exaggerated form of expression, and many Aspies gravitate toward that rather than just standard DC or Marvel comics.
But what are some maybe some social cues of somebody who's an Aspie? If you see something like, oh no, that person's an Aspie.
Well, it depends. If you've met one Aspie, you've met one Aspie. But I would say maybe not recognizing personal space, standing too close, standing too far away, hugging when you may not know them, or poor eye contact, or too much eye contact. It's like the way you describe it as being a little off. I'd say it's like being out of sync with the way most neurotypical people socialize. They socialize, but they socialize in their own way. And if it doesn't match up, then they stand out sometimes, but they just go about it a little bit differently.
Now, as far as when are those? Is it something that they always exhibit like at 3 years old, or is it something that develops later in life? Mostly, actually, I guess it probably would be a little bit later because as we grow up, if socially we don't socialize at the same way that everybody expects us to socialize, I'm sure that you could probably notice those differences. But what usually one of those differences kind of show up in a child?
Well, one of my colleagues at the office she went to down in Blakeney, her name's Dr. Tracy Barcott, and she can test kids down to 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And there's a center in Atlanta, the Marcus Institute, where they're doing facial recognition software and tracking eye contact, where they think they're going to be able to diagnose autism or spectrum issues down to within months of birth. But I'll tell you what happens is they continue to mature and develop, and if they're taught social skills or taught how to relate with people on other people's terms, then lemon-flavored water, well, a lemon, by the time you're a teenager or an adult, can look like lemon-flavored water because you continue to adapt. And if you get into a setting where it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. That's Big Bang Theory. Sheldon is Asperger's, and it doesn't matter what he's doing because it fits with the community he's living with.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel, and in Aspie, you always describe it as being a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely feel like, when somebody has a gift, it needs to be nurtured.
Yes.
And I think, for a long time, Aspies, I mean, you even mentioned it wasn't even, diagnosed
Didn't exist before 92.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there was a lot of people that went without, this is what this person has. And because I grew up with a reading disability, which is actually pretty curable, pretty preventable, curable in a sense, in the way that you teach people how to read. And a lot of people that I know have it. I think Henry Winkler is a guy that has something the way he describes what he has is very similar to what I have. And there's a female pro wrestler that has an issue like that as well. It's how we learn, where I was very lucky to have the teaching that I need, and I feel like I was able to overcome it probably a little better than what they were. What are some challenges that an Aspie would have if, say, their gift or their thought process wasn't nurtured?
It's brutal. I mean, it's absolutely brutal. They are typically popular when they're little because they know everything about dinosaurs or space. But then when other kids start to socialize and sort of think, oh, well, you're different from me, you start hitting middle school, they'll not get invited to birthday parties, they're made fun of, they're bullied on the bus, PE. They're typically clumsy, so they can't find their place, and they can retreat, get depressed, get angry, temper tantrums, meltdowns, doubt themselves. Suicide is a higher risk, anxiety, depression, and then you just end up growing up as an adult just feeling really bad about yourself. You could have a chip on your shoulder because you've been traumatized. And that's why I really try to find them early. That's why I'm always trying to get this message out so parents can find that early intervention work to make them Jedi Masters.
And that's another thing that I find remarkable about some of the things you like, especially the stuff that I've seen online about when you talk about, about Aspies and stuff like that and you even refer to them as, I'm probably not going to word it as well as you, but like the next evolution of humans.
Human 2.0.
Yes. And like kind of describe that because I find it very interesting,
I've met some of these human 2.0s. It's really interesting where I'll meet mom and dad and there's a history of spectrum stuff and you can just hear in terms of careers. And then I meet this kid who is into all the Aspie stuff, can hyper-focus, but has really good social skills. It's like he's an amphibian. And I will speak about it in terms of this is what Asperger's is, this is where it's headed, and you're one of these people. I've met people who are just, you have multiple doctorates. They're more intense individuals. They describe their early childhood as struggling socially, but once they kind of are in their element, where the their interests and their strengths match their surroundings, the anxiety goes down and they're really able to shine and do some absolutely amazing things. But it's important to find them early. The world that we live in now with NASA and just everything that's around us technology-wise, it wouldn't exist without these human 2.0s running around.
Obviously. And so it seems like when I first heard that like description of human 2.0 and stuff like that, and taking something that most people would classify as a disability, and then you've never used it as a disability, which I think is fantastic, because everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that. You know, like I get very hard on myself, but I feel like I will never fall to my own hubris. You know,
Right.
So like I feel like those things happen. But the way you describe it, it almost seems. I almost want to say controversial in a sense. And have you met like type of people like opposition saying what you're saying is very controversial?
Well, the one controversial thing I'll get into is people fear that I will underestimate the difficulties that these guys have. And given that there's a spectrum, I do acknowledge those difficulties, and that's what I do. I help them overcome it. But positive psychology is sort of the mainstream thing right now. The media and different organizations haven't really picked it up too much. But the idea of positive psychology is, instead of just looking at what's wrong, start looking at what's right and increasing that side of the equation. And the more you do that, the research is very clear. People do way better when you do that. And when I first moved to Charlotte, and this is probably 17 years ago, I was doing little groups with kids that are being bullied, and I started moving down this path, and people were nervous about coming to Southeast Psych. They, I'm going to see a psychologist. Am I crazy? And now, I mean, I can legitimately say Southeast Psych has really popularized psychology in this city. People come here literally to socialize in our waiting areas and hang out. I have kids who come and just do their schoolwork because it's a nice place to study. We're getting ready to open up a new wing across the hall that I think it's going to be called Psych Bites, but it's really designed for all my clients to come, hang out, socialize after school, have a movie night once a month. It's sort of this safe, fun, inspiring place, and sort of popularizing psychology, because when you focus on those strengths, then you get strengths, and then all my Aspies are my little evangelists out there. Even tomorrow morning, I'm going to a local school where my client wants to tell his class that he's Aspie. So we're going to be outing him to 400 kids, and they're all middle schoolers. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, wow. Well, let's take a little step backwards and talk about you for a second. And where did this passion for, for this come into play? Like when did you decide that you wanted to be a doctor and help people? When did that start?
Well, I knew I wanted to be a doctor when I read a book by Isaac Asimov called Foundation. And in Foundation, there is a scientist named Harry Seldon, and he was a mathematician, a historian, and a psychologist. And he was able to look at human behavior and predict the future. And I was like, wow, that makes perfect sense. I totally get this. And I said to my dad, I want to be a psychohistorian. And he said, there's no such thing. But it turns out, I read an article 2 years ago, a year ago, that the Libya-Syria stuff that was going on, or that is going on, was predicted, I think, 4 or 5 years prior, using mathematics, psychology, history, and creating formulas, and they were able to predict when all this stuff was going to happen, which means, okay, there it is. But that was in 8th grade, and I just went through high school and college, and my business partner, he doesn't remember this, but that's because he's really old. We were sitting on a couch, and I asked him what I should be when I grow up. It's my junior year of college, and he said, well, how are your grades? I said, they're so-so. and my major was psychology, and my grades were good in that. He said, well, why don't you be a psychologist? And I looked at him and said, okay, sounds good. And that's it. It was just, okay, sounds good. Mm-hmm. He was in graduate school at the time. His name's David Verhagen. Mm-hmm. And we've been friends since I was 18, and we started Southeast Psych 15 years ago this October.
Oh, wow. Let's go back. What did your dad do? Like, what type of background did your family come from?
My dad was a Marine. He was a chemical engineer. He was an executive with DuPont. And he was also a master shipbuilder for museums and private collectors, and was on the spectrum. And so was my grandfather. So I totally get it, but I didn't realize it until much later in life.
Mm-hmm. And I remember you talking to me about your father, his patterns and stuff like that. What were the things that he really got into?
He was really into, his biggest focus, he knew a lot about history and taught me a lot about that, but he always talked about ships. Ships were the thing, and especially Civil War, Revolutionary War, and they were all hand-built from the original plans, and they're probably the most intricate models you'll ever see. They were selling for $80,000 to $110,000 a piece, which is pretty crazy, but it's pretty amazing stuff. If any of your listeners are ever at the Beaufort Maritime Museum in North Carolina, you can see right there in the lobby, it's the Queen Anne's Revenge, which is Blackbeard's pirate ship. Mm-hmm. He built that, and probably 7 or 8 ships that are still on display down there.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. So when you decide that you're going to get into psychiatry,
psychology.
Yeah,
I'm not a real doctor.
You know what? I was. I knew I was going to make that mistake.
Everybody does.
Exactly. But when you decided to get into psychology, where'd you go from there? Like, what was the path from there? Like,
well, I'm a mindless drone. I literally did whatever my buddy Dave told me to do. So I did the same internships he did, but basically it was UNC Chapel Hill undergrad, then UNC for grad school. That's University of North Carolina. Then I did some other work at the Umstead Hospital and moved up to Philadelphia with the Devereaux Foundation, worked there for a while, became their senior research psychologist, and actually hired my friend Dave to come up and give a presentation. Mm-hmm. After the presentation, he said, you should move to Charlotte. I got more work than I can do. I talked to my wife, and she said, you got 2 weeks to get a job, because she didn't particularly want to come back. And then sort of the rest is history. He and I were clinicians together for about 1.5 years. That practice closed, and we sat down and said, let's do our own thing, and we've been doing it ever since.
And I've looked through a lot of your promotional materials and your website and stuff like that, and you have a very interesting philosophy, and you come off as like almost kind of cool, and most probably there's that stigma of I don't want to see,
right,
I don't want to talk to anybody.
We want to kill that stigma.
Yeah, and your presentation definitely does that, but what were some obstacles that you recognize with, there are people out there that need help. There's people out here that need to talk to somebody. There's people that kind of just need just a little nudge in this direction, or talk this way. What are some of the stigmas you have to get over in that field?
Well, the field of psychology and sort of the stereotype of a psychologist is you walk into the waiting room and there's a little fountain and there's classical music playing, and then you go back and you talk, and it's just awkward. The stereotype of a psychologist is you have a waiting area with a water fountain and classical music playing, and it's sterile, and there's a little glass door. And we never wanted to work in an environment like that. We wanted to work in a place that was fun, welcoming, and so we've created this culture based on the word FIRE. It's fun, innovation, relationships, and excellence. But our tagline, Psychology for All, means we need to give psychology away. We need to get the word out that psychology can really help your life. And we do that by giving free webinars. We give free talks. Last year we gave over 200 free presentations in Mecklenburg County here in Charlotte. We have shows on the Dr. G. Aspies show is an example of it, the Mind Matters show. And we're just trying to push the envelope of getting the word out that psychology can be fun and can be really useful in someone's life. And it sounds like a very grandiose, maybe narcissistic goal, but we want to literally change the culture of psychology in America. We want to change the way people think about it.
Just not even regionally, but you're talking across the board
United
here.
States. Yep. We have our Hero House publishing arm is providing books and stories of resilience. We've got, we were the executive producers of the film Legends of the Night. That was huge. It's on Netflix now. And we have 2 more films in the work with the same director that will be released in 2016. That's just going to be astounding what it's going to do. But it's trying to put resources behind the idea that psychology can be fun and relevant and not weird and tell me about your mother, you know.
Yeah, and like I said, your office is one. It's got Darth Vader welcomes you in here, and a bevy of just all kinds of Star Wars movies, just about everything.
Pop culture.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff that most people can get behind. That's
right.
For sure.
Yeah, kids walk into our lobby and you don't need to convince them to come in.
they're running straight in. But you brought up Legends of the Night. Now I saw this on Netflix. I also scanned it a little bit this morning to make sure I got every little story in there. It's a bunch of little stories about the effect of Batman and the positive effect on it. Growing up a kid that was a fan of comic books, I really appreciated the little nuances about it and relating it to it, because I too I was a big X-Men guy.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
And the idea of I came across it as kind of a teenager, early teenager, and the idea of that's when your mutant powers were discovered.
That's perfect.
It's a perfect time to discover that. So, but also too, I mean, with the importance of Batman and especially the Nolan trilogy, I took those things very much to heart, and I think about those a lot, about a symbol being created, and therefore we make ourselves better.
Exactly.
And I kind of feel like that's the point of the whole documentary and stuff like that.
Yeah, it resonates very much with what we're trying to do. And Brett Culp, his film he's just an epic guy, and is just fueled by this idea of becoming better and finding stories that provide hope and encouragement rather than what's wrong. And Batman and all the stories within that film, it really kind of shows what an impact that character has had on our lives.
Yeah, you've got the guy that works at a gang unit, and he's just trying to, even the little thing of trying to I want to make sure this person's on the right path.
Right.
And then even the sense of the person who's on crutches doing the dance competition.
Yeah, there's a great Dance Dance Revolution. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
He's a great guy.
I think that was the thing that dropped my jaw in the entire thing. It emotionally moved me throughout, but that was mind blowing.
And the little boy Kai, he's in full remission and he's doing great.
Awesome.
It's neat stuff. Lenny Robinson from Baltimore, Maryland, with the Lamborghini and the Batmobile. We had him down here for the premiere, and he and I rode around the Batmobile all week, and we just had a blast. His charity is fantastic too. So you have to look him up on Facebook.
Absolutely. Now, how did you guys come in contact with these people? Was it just search, or how did because there has to be? I don't know if there's if there had to be some people left out, or you had to pick the cream of the crop, or what that process was like.
This is a ridiculous story. I'll make it quick.
Oh, please.
All right. So we had a postdoctoral intern, and his name was Dr. Pat OConnor. And he came to Southeast Psych with a website he created called Comicspedia, which are stories of comics, but there are psychological lessons to be learned. It's a great website. Brett Culp heard of Pat OConnor and came to Southeast Psych to film. I met Brett, and I just acted like an idiot and talked like Batman, and I was just goofing off. But we were able to get a tiny little clip of me being serious. But Brett and I kind of hit it off. So that's meeting Brett. But then I have a comic book about Asperger's called Max Gamer. There's a guy named Josue Cordona who without my knowledge, with Pat OConnor, submitted an application to be a panelist at Comic-Con. And then he called me up and said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about this, but that's weird. Uh-huh. And it got accepted. Oh. So we became panelists at Comic-Con, which was epic. And all our worlds collided. There's a software guy, Brett Culp, came out, and we went out to dinner, and we offered funding for the film, became executive producers, and it's just kind of spun into increasingly smaller and smaller worlds of people involved in inspiration, geek culture, pop culture. And so we've created these lasting friendships and relationships and future projects that I can't even think how awesome they'll be.
Yeah. So during the process of making the film, like, was there anything that you're like, I wish we could have kept that in, or anything?
Yeah, I wasn't a part of it. It was. I mean, Brett has complete creative control, and it was more of a, wow, this guy's amazing, we really need to support him. And then it was, holy crap, this is what we love. And now going forward, I can't say too much about the films yet, but one of them is about father-daughter relationships, and it's being filmed in a lot of different cities around the country, and it's about body image and how girls feel about themselves growing up with the voice of their dad in their head, and how important fathers are to daughters. And the stories it's going to be a tearjerker, amazing film. And the other one, the other film is about children who are overcoming their own kind of adversity, but doing good in a selfless way, a lot like Superman. And this, it's basically called Rising Heroes. And it's just going to be so intense. But Brett knows what he's doing, and we're probably going to be a bigger part. We're in parts of the Legends film, Dave Verhagen, Barry Morgenstein, myself, Pat OConnor. But I think we'll be more involved in these next two, especially the father-daughter relationship, because Southeast Psych owns that film.
Oh, okay. So, and I think you even mentioned you have your own studio and you work that way. So what made you want to start that? You know, I mean, other than just the fact, I mean, you're helping people just, through your practice. But why start a studio? Why do start creating films and doing projects like this?
Well, I think a couple reasons. One is Dave Verhagen. It was his idea, and I just say, well, it sounds good. Let's do it. But the other is how when you think about how are you going to get a message out, that's going to be film, it's going to be TV, it's going to be relationships, and we're able to do funny, weird things. Like I went into it's called the shrink tank. We went in the shrink tank, and I'm standing there with a stress ball, and I'm bouncing it off our glass doors, and I thought, oh, this could be funny, and I turned to an intern and said, film this with your phone. And I bounced the ball off his face 2 or 3 times, and I said, don't flinch, don't flinch. And then I threw the ball right at his crotch. And it was glass wall, but he totally flinched. And I just said, that looks funny, put it on YouTube, 133,000 views. And it's Southeast Psych. So it kind of brings attention to, in a fun, weird way, the message we're trying to send that psychology for all, Southeast Psych, psychology can be fun, can be super helpful and very relational.
And another fun thing you do is you have your own comic, Max Gamer.
Yes.
Now, do you do all the writing on this comic book, or how involved are you in this?
Ryan Kelly, he's almost Dr. Ryan Kelly, is my co-author, and I had Kara Dahlheimer was the artist on the first one. And Ryan Kelly also did a lot of the artistry. And in the story is born out of exactly what it says, Max Gamer, I'm a superhero, and teaching kids through this anime style that they are awesome, and there are other people out there like you, and you will one day find your powers and flourish.
So, any other plans for another comic? Do you just keep up pretty busy, or how much?
We have the second one written, and I've got a bead on one particular author who's actually an Aspergers girl.
Okay.
And she's a phenomenal artist. So I already have two book credits. So I'm going to be exploring that maybe summer, fall. But we already have it written. We have the story. It's really cool. It's called Max 2, Rise of the Bully.
Okay. So on top of the comic, on top of the film projects you're working on, what are some other things that you do?
Make my head explode.
A bit, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Well, Dave Hagen and I just had our book, How to Build a Dream Practice. It just came out, and it's doing really well. And I actually, this is really cool. Dr. Travis Knightley, who's the author of Batman and Psychology, A Dark and Stormy Night, has asked many clinicians around the country to write chapters for books that are coming out, and I can announce two of them, because they're already pre-order on Amazon. But it is Walking Dead Psychology, basically Fear the Freud, and then The Psychology of Star Wars. The Walking Dead book comes out in August 15th, and the Star Wars book comes out in October. But it's going to be a series of books, and there are already two or three more that the publisher has given a green light to. So I spend a lot of time writing, a lot of time working on my practice. I see probably 25 clients a week, plus 4 to 5 groups a week with 10 kids each, so I don't sleep.
I'm trying to get on that schedule as well. I'm working very hard on it, but I find that I like sleep so much.
Right.
But if I could get 6 hours a night,
That'd be fantastic.
oh my gosh,
It'd change life.
There's so much I could do if I just got 6 hours of sleep, got up, and got out of the day. So that's my goal, is to get down to 6 hours a day, and then if I just work every second I'm awake.
That's right.
Yeah,
you're set.
Exactly. That's my thought process on everything. But I got a personal question now that maybe we can follow up with a professional diagnosis.
Okay.
Is that how excited are you for the new Star Wars movie?
Oh my God.
I wanted to make sure I asked you.
Oh my gosh.
Because the newest trailer just came out a few days, just over the weekend.
That trailer came out, and 4 days later, Disney's value as a company went up $2 billion in 4 days. Man. J.J. Abrams is a total rock star. He's going to do it right. And do you want my predictions?
Oh, please.
All right.
Please.
The Sith that you see is actually risen from the dead. Because when Darth Vader dies and the Emperor dies, it leaves a vacuum. There's no dark side. You can't have good without bad. And I think we're going to see the home world, the home Sith world, where there used to be millions of Sith, and the crypt where the original Sith Lord was will break open, and he will be released, and he will be out trying to restore power. He's probably going to be seeking someone to be his apprentice. And when you see that lightsaber in the trailer, that was Anakin's lightsaber. That was his blue lightsaber from when he was a Padawan. If that lightsaber was given to Luke by Obi-Wan, Darth Vader cut Luke's hand off with that lightsaber in the hand. So how do we have that lightsaber? So the only thing I can think of is Darth Vader recovered it and had it all along. Then where is it? Where does it come from? What does that mean? And if that one scene where you go and you look at Darth Vader, is there DNA? Is there cloning involved? There's something big going on, and I do think they will finally kill Han Solo in this movie.
Oh.
Yeah, I think he will die, and I think I'll stop talking. I think Han and Leia either have 1 or 2 kids. Han will die, and it will turn one of the kids dark and bitter, and will move them to the dark side. That's what I think is going to happen.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited. Maybe not as excited as you,
Right.
but because I've seen your office and
Yeah.
it's just full of Star Wars
Oh, yeah.
stuff. But when I saw it, I was rather excited about it.
It's going to be
as well.
amazing.
And that, and plus the Batman
Oh, my
Superman
gosh.
movie.
Yes.
Like-
I think it's going to be great, too. I really do. People are downplaying it, but when you look at the trailer frame by frame, when Superman comes down into that basement area and the soldiers bow down, if you look on the shoulder of each of those soldiers, you see a Superman symbol. So there's a cult, there's a religious cult, and the world has gotten scared, and so it makes sense why they would battle. But I'm always worried about DC movies, but this one may be okay.
Okay. But now here comes the professional diagnosis of this.
Sure.
A lot of people sometimes when they see, like, especially I brought up the Batman Superman movie, and sometimes there's been a lot of negativity thrown at these things.
Sure.
And even at Star Wars, like, oh, it's not going to this. Especially the first one, they were up in arms over,
Yeah.
the Stormtrooper. Right. And I've never understood, and I don't know if this is how I grew up or whatever. I'm just happy that they're making another Star Wars.
We're going to get another Star Wars movie every year for the next 6 years.
Yeah, and that excites me.
Mm-hmm.
And Batman versus Superman. We're going to have another Batman.
Yeah.
But it seems that everybody, when something like that comes out, they want to throw something negative at it right away.
There's always going to be haters.
Exactly, but why do you think that is? That something that you love that people throw such hate at it? I don't. As a psychologist, why would you? If you're a fan of something, why would we hate something? And I see this a lot in wrestling too.
Yeah.
Like you'll see people, they'll watch Monday Night Raw and they'll complain about it the whole time, but they will watch every week. And then there'll be people that'll complain, like you'll see Rock and Roll Express still wrestling a match. I'm like, oh, they're too old. I don't know why. And they're complaining about it. But where I see it as, like, I'm just lucky that we get to see Rock and Roll Express wrestle
Right.
in 2015, because it's a tag team and one of them could have made some bad choices and not be with us anymore, or they may hate each other and not wrestle anymore. Let's just be happy that we're still seeing this. Why do you think that people don't take that route?
I think it's same in any situation. You've got your pessimists and you got your optimists. And also, people don't like change a whole lot. So when you introduce change, it gets people a little bit anxious, and you hear that voice a little bit louder. And in the beginning, when Disney bought Lucas, I freaked. I was so pissed. Like, I lost it. And now I've kind of come around. I said, they never put Mickey Mouse ears on Darth Vader. And I'm like, well, okay, I get it. It's kind of cool. But I think it comes down to people's disposition. And I also say, when you are controversial over something, it gets you attention, which can be reinforcing too. So some kid will or somebody might just kind of make fun of Star Wars because nobody else is. And then everybody said, oh, what's wrong with you? And it's reinforcing.
Yeah, and I think that's a big trend these days, is people are trying to not like something.
Right. How to stand out in the noise.
Yeah, and it's a situation. It's like you're like, oh, I don't like this, or oh, this is a guilty pleasure. I don't want to like it. But like, if you like something, you just like it.
Right.
If somebody puts something out with some heart, let's do this.
Yeah.
So,
So you're probably an optimist then.
In
some areas, maybe.
In some areas, and the things I like, I think most people that know me probably wouldn't describe me as an optimist.
Gotcha.
I think I had a conversation with somebody this weekend where I had a water bottle that's 3/4 full, and I go, yeah, I'm kind of a glass half empty type of guy, especially right now.
That's hilarious.
So that's kind of how I describe myself.
Got it.
But anyways, also let's talk a little bit about comic books. I just wanted to talk. What are some of your favorite comic books, or something that you'd recommend to somebody? Like, you've got your own comic book that's good for Aspies people. But what are some people, the Aspies or anybody else that, like, hey, you should be reading this comic book, because the whole thing about Batman is inspirational. What are some other comics that are coming out that people probably don't know about?
I will tell you, the best place to go is Comixology. I mean, not Comixology, Comixpedia. Comixology is great to buy digital versions of comic books, but Comixpedia, there's just so many categories. You can pick loneliness, and it'll tell you issues to buy. You could pick divorce. You can pick, alcoholism, anything you can think of, then Dr. Connor has listed these comic books to go and read through, and it's I don't know of any resource on the planet like what he's doing. But my favorite comic books growing up, I had two, was Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
From the 70s, and also Iron Man. And the reason behind it was Swamp Thing, I just kind of felt like a Swamp Thing growing up. And Iron Man, I love technology. So it all just kind of makes sense for me.
Yeah.
And also I like Richie Rich, too.
Yeah, of course. And, of course, Iron Man's very, braggadocious. He's the type of individual we want to be, especially in this era. Like I think it was Stan Lee or somebody was talking about how more people want to be more like Tony Stark than Steve Rogers these days.
That's right.
Where Steve Rogers was like, this is the person we need to be like. We need to aspire to be Captain America.
Yep.
Where now everybody wants to aspire to be Iron Man.
And that's why I think America is aspiring to be narcissistic. We are a land of narcissists, and Iron Man is capital N narcissism.
Absolutely. that is for sure. And that's the thing too, is like, I'm definitely going to check out Comicpedia.
Yeah, Comicpedia is amazing.
I've just started to get into the X-Men series again.
Excellent.
Because Cyclops was a big favorite of mine, because he was kind of like a Boy Scouty type individual, and now I find out he's much more militant, much more jaded, much more bitter, much more angry. Like things that he's taken a lot of crap for a long time, and now he seems like he's ready to kind of give it back.
I concur.
So I definitely, that's kind of where I agree with comics can be an outlet for that.
Absolutely.
As we get a little bit closer to the end of the time here, I really want to talk about, because we haven't had a long, in-depth conversation about the Power of the Freight Train.
Yes.
And like I said, I'm sure you've watched it, and I just wanted to know.
My kids loved it, although I skipped a couple sections.
Okay.
Because they're little.
Yes, for obvious reasons.
Right.
Yes, but no, I just. What were your initial thoughts on that? Because we haven't had it. I hate to put you on the spot.
No.
In front of a camera, but I just want to know what you thought of it.
One, I was honored to be in it, and I showed it to the practice, and they loved it. But my initial thoughts is, like, Freight Train it seems like he is the kindest human being on the face of the earth. He's just so kind, naive, but passionate about what he's doing. He seems happy. He clearly seems supported by you. I felt bad for him because my assumption is over the years he's really been taken advantage of, and that's just sad. But he just seems settled in who he is, and it was just inspiring to see somebody find their place in life, where if it weren't for wrestling, who knows what he'd be. It would just be sad. He wouldn't have found his thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing that always inspires me about him, is that he found his place in this world, and it took a very long time to get there.
Right.
And I think that's the thing, is sometimes you need to find the right people to do so.
Yep. You gotta surround yourself with the best people, and also people who are smarter than you. Always do that.
Absolutely. But no, anyways, like I said, I just wanted to get your reaction on it, because Freight Train's he's very close to me. Like we actually were just in San Jose for WrestleMania weekend, a big convention and stuff. That's like great. That, and people from California, UK.
I will tell you, this is the craziest thing. Somebody came up to me, and we were talking for a while, and then he looked at me and he said, "Do you know Freight Train?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Wait a minute. You were in that documentary." I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's cool."
Oh yeah, the guy, his son, his son is the child that Freight Train's lifting up.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's the kid.
Got it. He was so nice. I liked him a lot.
Yes, I just saw them this weekend. They were at a show.
There you go.
He's at all the wrestling events and stuff like that.
That's great.
Big fan of Freight Train and everything like that. But he told me that he met you and stuff like
That's
that.
cool. Small world.
I know, very small world. But anyways, as we close in here, is there anything that you'd like to promote, let people know about, Southeast Psych, yourself? You're very active on Twitter, and
too active.
I don't know. You're just appropriate enough. I've been unfollowing a lot of people for some annoyances. So and I definitely haven't unfollowed you. That's for sure.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, because you'll have good stuff in there, especially like. there was something you just retweeted this morning. It was about somebody being an Aspie. And
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I really dig little stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you're a champion of something,
Right.
You know,
That's
something.
what my passion, my special interest.
Yeah, and I'd rather listen to your Twitter feed than most others. When
Thanks.
people are talking about how wonderful their wrestling career is going.
Right.
As I'm in a Mooresville National Guard Armory in front of 20 people, I'd rather hear
That's
about
awesome.
something else.
Yeah.
I'd rather see so many people doing some good with their lives.
That's right.
As opposed to how awesome the wrestling career. Well, mine's kind of over here right now. But anyways, to tell people how they can get in touch with you, follow you, everything else.
SoutheastPsych.com. You can like us on Facebook at Facebook Southeast Psych, and also you can follow me on Twitter at Dr. F. Gaskill, which is DrFGaskill.
Okay. Well, Dr. Frank, I thank you so much.
Thank you.
for your time, and especially since me showing up a little late and stuff like that.
This is great.
So
I
thank
like
you.
what you do a lot.
Oh, thank you. I'm like I said, this is just something outside of wrestling I'm trying to do and trying to get out of that world and in a different world.
Sure.
So thank you very much for helping me with that. I
No,
appreciate
thank you.
that. So, so you did a little bit of good with your time. You probably did something good for me mentally today.
I don't know.
Especially how my mind was probably about an hour and 20 minutes ago.
Right.
so
That's funny.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.